Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I'll be showing you how to use useState in React. I'll be going through what it is, how it's used, and I will give multiple examples of it being used. So without further ado, let's get started. So currently, I just made a bare React project using npx create React app, and I opened up Visual Studio Code inside of it. So now we can start off by removing the unnecessary files and the code that we don't need, and then we can move on to learning about useState. So first off, I'll just delete the files, and then we can delete this code right here. So I'm just going to remove app.css, app.test, report web vitals, setup tests. Alright, and we should be good. And also remove this logo.svg too. And then I'm just going to do import React from React in app.js, and then I'm just going to remove all of this and then just leave an empty div. And then inside of index, I'm just going to remove this report web vitals and remove this right here. And now we can start. So now we can get started. So useState is a React hook, and it's one of the most important hooks. And before we begin, I'd like to state that hooks can only be used inside of functional components like this one, and they won't be able to be, and they can't be used in class components, okay? So to start, we can begin by importing it. So at line 1 right here, I'm just going to import it with this, so useState. And this is going to import the useState hook. And also one more thing to note is that hooks cannot be used inside loops, conditional statements, or in functions. So if I were to have an if and then if the condition and run useState, it would give me an error, okay? So don't do that. Always put it at the top level of your function in order to run it. So now I'm going to show you an example of useState being used. So I'm just going to have const, and then we're going to have two values. The first value is going to be our state, so I'm just going to put count, and the second value is usually set count or whatever people call the state, okay? And then the default value for the state is going to be 0. So now I'm just going to render the count. So if I go here, it's going to show 0. And the reason it's showing 0 is because by default count is set to 0 right here. So it should show 0. And now I'm just going to add a button that's going to increase the count by 1. So I'm just going to put press me to increase. And I'm going to add an on-click event listener. And then whenever this event is triggered, we're just going to set count to count plus 1. And what this is going to do is call this set count function. And whenever it's called, it's just going to increase the count's value by 1. So if I go here and then refresh it, if I press it, it's going to increase it by 1 each time. Now, I've shown you how to increase the value. Let's say we want to decrease the value by 1, because right now all we have is count, and then we're rendering count. And if we press this press me to increase button, it's just going to call the set count and then increase the count by 1. But let's say that we want to decrease it. So what we're going to do is the same thing, except we're just going to subtract 1. So I'm just going to copy this, and then where it says increase, I'm going to put decrease. And then instead of putting plus, I'm just going to put a minus. And then if I go here, it says press me to decrease. So if I press this, it's going to decrease by 1. And if I press this, it's going to increase by 1. So let's say I'm at about 10, and I press this button once, it's going to drop down to 9. So you get the point. So now that I've shown you the examples with these numbers, let's say we want to do something similar but with a string. So to do it, we're just going to remove these right here. And whenever we go to our web page, it should be cleared. So as you can see, it's clear. So to do it with a string, it's pretty much similar. So just do const string and then set string useState, and then the initial state is going to be hello world. Okay, and just to recap, whatever goes inside of this useState right here, this hello world is the initial state. And then whenever we call this set string, the second value, whatever we pass in will be the new state, and that new state will be displayed. Okay, so let's say we want to render this string. So whenever we render it, it should show hello world. As you can see, it says hello world. So let's say we want a button that's going to change this hello world to goodbye world. So I'm just going to put press me to say goodbye. And then I'm just going to add the on-click listener again. And whenever this button is clicked, we want to set string to say goodbye world. So if I press this button, it says goodbye world. So now that I've shown you examples with strings and numerical values, let's do something similar but with booleans. So first I'm just going to remove the previous code that we had. Okay, so I'll just remove these. And now I'm going to declare a state variable like this. So const bool set bool, and it's going to be equal to useState, of course, and the initial state of bool will be set to true. And in previous examples, we had a button that would change our state. But for this example, I'm going to have a toggle button. So basically, we're going to first render a p tag, and we're going to set it to true or false depending on the state of our bool variable right here. All right, and the button is going to be used to toggle between true and false, and that will also change the p tag. Okay, so I'm just going to write down the code for the p tag, and then I'll explain what it does. Okay, so what does this mean? So if the bool is equal to true, which is declared by this question mark, which is also a ternary operator. So if the bool is true, then we're going to render true. Otherwise, we're going to render false. And currently, it should be rendering true since the initial state is set to true. Okay, so if we go here, you can see that it shows true. So now let's move on to creating the button. And again, I'm going to write down the code first, and then I'll explain what it means. Alright, so if we go here, you can see the button, and I'll explain what this onClick is doing. Alright, so whenever we press the button, if the bool's value is set to true, then we're going to set it to false, okay? So if the bool is equal to true whenever we press it, we're going to change the value to false, which will also change it to false right here. And otherwise, we're just going to set it to true, okay? So if I go here, and then if I press this multiple times, you can see that it only toggles between true and false. So currently the value is true. If I press it, it's going to be set to false, right? And if the boolean is set to true, then we're going to set it to true. Otherwise, we're going to show false. So right here, it's showing false. And let's toggle back, and now it's showing true. And then if the boolean is set to true, it's going to show true. All right, that's it for this video. I hope that you learned something and enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe for future videos, and if you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram or comment on this video, and I'll try my best to reply to you. As always, thanks for